Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I guess a lot of our panelists today are already in the evening time zone. Welcome to this last day of PAS Virtual Summit, and thank you so much for coming here today at this Power BI panel. Today, we've got a great lineup of speakers. They are here to answer and discuss all your questions about Power BI, and we've got a great lineup here today. So I'm gonna go quickly. Today we have Leila Etaati, Reza, Casper de Jones, Chris Webb, and Philip Seamark. So I'm gonna let each and every one of our speakers today introduce themselves, and while they're doing so, please introduce all your questions or your comments there in the question box or in the discussion box, and then we're going to be jumping right into Power BI. So Casper, take it away, please.
Sure, thank you. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Casper de Jonge. I'm a principal program manager on the Power BI team. Probably, if you've been to any other PAS summits and other panels, you probably saw me there too. So today we'll be looking forward to answering any questions you might have. I'm looking forward to this. Chris, you want to take it?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Chris Webb. I work on the Power BI customer advisory team with these two people. Hopefully the pictures are in the right places with Casper and Phil, definitely. I'm here to answer your questions. I'm particularly interested in Power Query related things, but I think between us we should be able to cover just about everything relating to Power BI. Phil?
Yeah, cool. Hello, everyone. I'm Phil Seamark. So I again work with Casper and Chris on the Power BI CAT team. I'm based down in New Zealand, and my role on the CAT team, I tend to sort of focus and specialize on DAX and a little bit of data modeling. So if you do have any DAX and data modeling questions, please don't fire them through because it's far too early in the morning and I'm only just waking up. No, you can feel free to send them through. Reza.
Thank you, Phil. Good morning because it is morning. Saturday morning it's here actually in New Zealand. Everyone, I'm not working in the Power BI team. I'm working at Reza, but been working with Power BI quite a bit. You'll find some articles, videos, things from me and Leila normally in Reza website. So happy to be with you here and looking forward to have a good chat and answering questions. Leila.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Leila, same from New Zealand, Auckland. And I'm also working in AI and data platform. So any question from AI and also Charticulator, I'm happy to answer.
We have a high density of New Zealand in this call.
Yeah,
I was thinking the same, yeah.
That is awesome. Well, folks out there in the audience, please start putting in the topics that you would like to discuss here. We've got a great lineup, like I said. So Casper, I'll hand it over to you to start with this panel.
Yeah, sure. I was thinking maybe we can start before any questions come in with some questions. So maybe Reza, what do you think is some exciting new features that have just come out to Power BI?
The one that I really like in November update, like yesterday, was actually the diagram view that we have it already in the data flow. It's really nice. If you haven't played with that's really cool. I mean, previously we had that dependency diagram, which was, I mean, very useful, but this is far better than what we used to have. Like right now we can even see the transformation between tables. We can even edit it. We can change it. Like for advanced scenarios, definitely you need to do some M scripting, of course, but still that helps a lot in finding a lot of information from the diagram itself. That was like the best catch I found before and right now that it is kind of like available for everyone through the data flow. Looking forward to have it in the actual Power Query itself in Power BI. What you guys thinking about that?
Chris will probably have to say something to say.
Yeah, I think Chris.
Well, you see, Reza's like stolen my Power Query related thing.
Oh, sorry about that.
For me, I quite like the new anomaly detection feature. I'm a big fan of all of these features that kind of help you understand what's going on in your data. And the anomaly detection, rather like key influencers, and even some more buried features like explain the increase and so on. I think they're really cool. They do a great job, and they're features that I think people should use a bit more of.
Yeah, awesome. Eric?
Yeah, so we have here a question from David Kettinger. I am excited about the new AI visuals, but unfortunately, in almost all of my customer deployments of Power BI, we're using the live connection method for creating reports. In most cases, we either connecting to a Power BI premium dataset, for example, analysis services in Power BI tenant, or an analysis services server on-prem or in Azure. Most if not all of it, the AI features of Power BI, except for Q&A, I believe do not work for live connections. Is this going to change so that Power BI customers can get these new augmented experiences in live connection mode to share Power BI datasets or analysis services databases? If not, how would you recommend people configure all their Power BI X files in order to use this? Obviously, we can have many duplicate imported models, as that is not scalable. I hope that was long, but I hope you all got it, get it there.
I get the question. I get the question, and while talking, I can answer it as well. So I think you will not see this anytime soon, because the AI features that are running inside of Power BI are actually a different version of the analysis service engine. There are some enhanced features inside of the analysis service engine that allow us to do these AI features. But they are exposed in a way that we really cannot run them in, because there are some things in the backend running in too, some AI services and things like this that we really don't have available. Definitely not on-premise, but also not in the analysis services engine. Really, the only way to get this to going is by moving some of your analysis services models into the premium capacities, which will also now support larger model sizes and things like this. That's really the only way, I think. Anyone else wants to add something to this?
I was thinking maybe having the ability to have multiple analysis services model live connection would help in this, but I'm not aware of the architecture behind, so I'll leave it to you.
I don't think that's going to work.
Amazing, thank you. We got some other questions. There's a lot of questions flowing in, and thank you so much, everyone in the audience, for getting those in. I'm gonna try my best to feed all this to the panelists today. Anthony asks, will any sort of AI features / visuals come to PBIRS, please? Power BI IRS.
So I think the answer is no. Again, as Casper said, a lot of these features rely on certain things inside the engine that really only make sense in the cloud. And while we are continuing to invest in Power BI Report Server, in the long run, we would like everybody to at least think about migrating towards the cloud. Now, that doesn't mean we don't love Power BI Report Server, and it doesn't mean that we aren't going to continue to invest in it, but there are just some things that only make sense in the cloud and only make sense for us to be able to, we're only able to support in the cloud.
Chris, spoken like a true Microsoft employee.
So Chris, maybe this next question you'll be able to answer. Is Power BI going to replace Microsoft SSAS Tabular in the near future?
Oh.
If you know insight from Microsoft.
Oh.
Well, so this is a complicated question. So obviously today, on one hand, we have Azure Analysis Services. On the other hand, we have something which is very closely related to the Analysis Services engine running inside Power BI and running inside Power BI Premium. Now, our stated intention is at some point in the future, you will be able to do absolutely everything in Power BI Premium that you can do in Azure Analysis Services today. So at some point in the future, if you were to start up a new project, it would just not make any sense whatsoever to use Azure Analysis Services, because Power BI Premium would be able to do everything, and it would be able to do it better, and it would all be inside Power BI, and it would have even more features. Now, we are not at that point today. And where we are is a situation where we're still investing in both platforms. All of the cool new features are likely to appear inside Power BI Premium. There are different optimizations. Things are still appearing in Azure Analysis Services, but the main focus is Power BI Premium. But there are still some features in Azure Analysis Services which are not available in Power BI Premium yet. So we're not telling you to migrate just yet. We're not forcing you to do anything. If you were to start a new project now, I think you would need to evaluate the pros and cons of both platforms. So you'd need to say, do I really need features that are only available in Azure Analysis Services? Probably. If not, then go with Power BI Premium. If you did need to use features like object level security, for example, you might prefer to stay on Azure Analysis Services today. But over the next 6 months to a year, there will be more and more features in Power BI Premium that, well, the features in Azure Analysis Services that aren't in Premium will begin to light up. And what's more, it's going to be super easy for you to migrate anyway. So it's not like if you chose to go with Azure Analysis Services today, you would be, forced to spend a couple of months of work to migrate to Power BI Premium in the future. We really want to make it as easy and seamless as possible for you to migrate when the time comes. So don't worry too much about the choice right now, but I would say if you can go with either, go with Power BI Premium, and just be aware that in the near future, you'll be able to migrate to Power BI Premium from Azure Analysis Services. You'll be able to do everything. It's not going to, we don't want to break anything. You'll have all the features, and I would say in a couple of years' time, for sure, Azure Analysis Services will still be there, it'll still be supported, but for new projects, you of course you'll always choose Power BI Premium.
May I just use the situation, ask a question that probably someone wants to talk about? The Power BI Premium per user, considering that we have like a lot of insight information now in this session, how close you guys, Chris, Phil, and Casper, you think that this is going to get to the actual premium experience?
It's going to be
exactly.
Practically, almost exactly the premium experience.
Actually, if you looked at I actually was looking at the session. Priya and Christian Wade did a session on this at SQL Pass, and they will say it's going to be equivalent to whatever you get today with the P3. So if you go back to the session that Christian Wade and Priya did, I'm not quite sure what the title is anymore, but they did it here at Pass. You can see more details on that part too.
Yeah. And just jumping back to that question about AAS versus Power BI Premium, absolutely. At the moment, there's a bunch of projects that make sense to host your model in AAS right now, but different projects would make sense to host it in Power BI Premium right now. And what you're going to see over time is it's going to make more and more sense to use Power BI Premium over time as we add features to Power BI Premium. But there will still always be a time where, for whatever the size and the needs are for the project, that it still will make more sense to put it into Azure Analysis Services. It's not going to go away. Just simply being able to pause, resume, simple things like that will definitely probably become more edge case. But you'll be able to switch your model back and forward between the two. It's going to be easier to do things like that. So it's two options to host your model, and it's up to you. And I think over time it'll make more sense to host your model in Power BI Premium. That's my take.
Awesome, thank you, Phil. So just to let everyone know out there, and also our panelists, we have a lot of questions, and for all the folks out there, remember you can upvote those questions. So if you strongly believe that that's a really interesting question, remember that you can upvote that, and that will bring up I'll be doing my best to feed all those questions to the panelists, but it definitely will help if you can upvote to those questions out there already. So I'm going to feed this next one that has been hot here in the question pane. According to the roadmap for the new composite models being introduced next month, the Power BI team said we should be able to create composite models over Azure and Power BI datasets. Is there plans for being able to create these models over SSAS databases?
Not quite sure what the question means. I think it means multidimensional models.
I guess.
Or potentially
Or
on-prem
on-prem analysis.
Yeah,
So
that's my guess.
So
Yeah,
there are no
SSA.
plans to do support on-premise analysis services. Maybe there's a small potential in the next version of analysis service, because again, similar reason that I said before, we needed to change analysis services to be able to use the composite models. And we can do that easily in Azure analysis service, so we did. And also the same with Power BI datasets. So it's not planned anytime soon for it to support on-premises analysis services. And it's not planned at all right now to support multidimensional models, because it's a very different ballgame.
It's a very big, complex investment, that one.
Would
Very
it mean
exciting
that? Sorry, would it mean that for the next analysis services on-prem version, whatever it is, 2020 or 2021, 2022, it would be possible?
You have to
Potentially.
ask Christian.
No. So right now, there's no confirmed plan.
Right.
All right, moving on to the next one. Are you all excited for the composite model with SSAS tabular cube functionality? I know it has not been released as of yet, but what is your take on that?
Hey, we've all played with it, so yeah, we're even more excited than you are.
Phil?
Yeah, no, definitely very, very exciting. So for those in this listening that aren't aware what we're talking about, this is the ability for you to create a new Power BI model, say a PBIX model, and connect to a remote model that someone else has built. Perhaps it's in Azure Analysis Services or Power BI Desktop. You can do that today, but when you do that today, you're very limited about what you can do. You're pretty much just saying, I'm going to completely use this other model and I can't modify it or enhance it very much at all. But with this feature, what you're going to be able to do is add your own measures and columns and bring in your own data, and it opens the door to quite a large set of use cases. So if you can imagine some people building a small number of very important centralized models in your organization, but teams can use that as a starting point and then customize and layer on their own data, sideload on, things that are relevant just to that team, and have the team use it. It's pretty exciting. Like I said just before, it's a very big, complex thing to do, and it seems to be going pretty well. And I've enjoyed the opportunity I've had to play with it so far. So I'm looking forward to it getting out and for real. But it definitely opens the doors to a lot of possibilities, and I think it's been practically the number one or very high on the ideas list for a long time. The ability to do this sort of direct connect to another analysis services model. Casper, what do you reckon?
Oh, I definitely agree. What do you guys think, Reza, Leila?
I think this is very like one of the major updates we are going to have in Power BI, because a lot of people have like models in other places. Now we can reuse a lot of those models in a composite model way, which is very interesting.
Yeah, same. Many customers are looking forward that, so it's really good. We have answer for them.
So moving a little bit away about, asking about releases and what you think, I have a good question here from Matt about an issue that he's facing. So his question is, we have a vendor providing a non-certified connector and advising us to disable the validation in Power BI Desktop, so it would load. How much exposure are we really opening ourselves up to? How concerned should I be? Thanks,
Chris?
Matt.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I don't think you should worry too much. Obviously, the protection is there for a reason. But if you trust your vendor, I don't think there's going to be any particular reason why you're going to get in trouble for doing that. It's a fairly common thing if you've got a custom connector to need to be able to do this. Obviously, you should encourage your vendor to go through the certification program so that it won't be necessary. But it's not, I don't think it's a massive security risk. And in any case, it's very easy if you have got a custom connector. You can just unzip the file and have a look at the code and see what it's doing, if you know when. But I think it's unlikely that there's going to be a serious security risk, but don't quote me on that.
Thank you, Chris. Let's go with another question here. Is there a best practices for composite models, such as putting all dimensions into one model and create one model per fact table that joins on the appropriate dimensions? Thank you, Scott.
It's probably Phil.
Okay, well, there's a lot of nuances to this. You know, I personally wouldn't go to the effort of trying to make a completely different model per fact table, especially if there are some commonalities between the fact tables. Like the fact tables can share common dimensions, you know, and obvious ones will be things like time and date, but there might be other common dimensions relevant to your organization, like people or location, products, etc. So analysis services is more than capable of handling, you know, as many fact tables as you probably can throw at it. And yeah, it's a good practice to, you know, flatten your model structure to be star schema, and, you know, where it makes sense, join those fact tables to common dimensions. I would really avoid any temptation to join a fact table to a fact table. But I think what you'll find is if you separate your fact tables into separate models, then it'll make some analyses and metrics that do make sense to get calculations over more than one fact table at a time. It'll make that practically impossible. We used to have something in multi-dimensional that could query across models, I think, from memory, some cube value type queries, but the performance is not fantastic. But by all means, if you've got, you know, multiple fact tables, you know, they're more than comfortably sit in the same model, but just follow the best practice. You know, make sure it's a good star schema pattern. And you know, if you go to the Power BI CAT guidance, PBI guidance, there's a whole bunch of articles there with good recommendations on what you should consider when you're designing and optimizing a data model. So personally, if it was me, 9 times out of 10, I would say one model to do most things would make sense. It would only be if the fact tables really just have no resemblance to each other, where perhaps splitting it to different models might give the opportunity to host them in different scaled systems, or handle how much grunt you support that model with in terms of being able to cope with concurrency, or what sort of size server you want to sit it on. So that's my take. Reza, Leila, what do you?
I would say using like everything you said, plus using data flows as well for your shared tables. At least you'll have something like a centralized place for your shared kind of dimension. In case you are using it in one model and another model, you just get data from that data flow and use it. In case you don't have a data warehouse or a central model to use it, that would be my add to that.
Same.
Oh.
Yeah, and actually, can I do one plug? So I actually did a session on this, on composite models, on my YouTube channel, Casper on BI. So it goes like an hour-long deep dive on this.
Well, folks, now you know. Go check that out from Casper. Now, talking about models here as well, we have a question from Benny. With composite models coming soon, let's hope, he says, what are some practical tips you might have to help organizations keep a clear overview of their data governance? What data is used where, who's accessing it or can? Adding Excel files and other data on the fly is cool, but I know some users that will need to pay themselves. Was that clear enough?
Yeah, it was. I can start answering too. I mean, so really the situation doesn't really change, because you're still connected to the same analysis services that you already had access to before. The only difference, and what we saw happening today, is that either people were importing data from that same analysis service into a local file, even making things worse, or even into Excel, and then mashing it up from there. So now the data stays in the location. You have roll-up security and all of these things that have access to it. And of course, there's the lineage tools inside of Power BI too that actually shows you where data comes from and what is going on. And yeah, I think that's it for now. I think. Anyone else want to speak about this?
I think you're going to have control over whether people are allowed to build composite models over your data set as well, aren't you?
I was not sure if we were allowed to say that, but thank you, Chris.
That's awesome.
Let's cut that part.
I love how you fumble it over there to Chris. Great job there. Okay, next question. As Microsoft moves Power BI more towards self-service and AI, how do you see the future for people who are currently working as Power BI report developers or data visualization specialists?
Leila?
Yeah. So it's going to have more self-service AI in self-service Power BI. That means that we are going to have many actually K-influencer, decomposition tree, narrative, anomaly detection. We have, I think the chat we have, I think we have more of them. That is really good, actually help business user and analyzer. But also in the same time, because in the other side, Azure Machine Learning services also provide lots of development idea, and you can embed it inside the Power BI. So it's actually provide a chance to developer to bring their own machine learning code inside Power BI. So it's kind of cover both users, developers versus people who are just business user and they don't want to write the code. So I can see the both things coming very rich in both scenarios.
I just pose another mini question here to Leila. How much of these pre-built AI feature you see customers are using versus the custom writing R or doing machine learning, combining with Azure machine learning?
I think many users use the custom one like Charticulator and the other inside Power BI instead of using R and Python inside Power BI. But many Python users now they can actually bring their own code in Azure Machine Learning services and using Jupyter Notebook and then consume it inside that. So it's R and Python inside Power BI a bit less, but again, they can bring it from other sides. So any other things?
Thank you, Leila. Thank you. Does anyone have any more to add to that? We can move on to the next question.
I think the question was about, do we see more and more roles developing, for people like Power BI developers and data viz people? I think the Power BI usage is still growing, very, very strongly around the place, and it just seems to be turning up here, there, and everywhere. So I think there will definitely be a lot more roles in 1, 2, 3 years, quite specialized in people that only just do the visualization layer. I mean, we're very lucky on our team to be working with two exceptional people, Chris Hamill and Miguel, and they just blow us away time and time again at what they can do with the visualization layers, to the point where actually I pretty much have given up trying to actually do an attractive looking report. But I think there are going to be more and more people that just specialize in that focus and being able to put a report together that visually looks very, very attractive, and they're going to be highly sought after and probably quite well paid too. Likewise, there'll be people that are just dedicated to building the actual underlying data structures to be efficient, and I think there'll be a lot more roles simply because of the usage stats are just continuing to go crazy with Power BI. It's impressive. It's a very exciting space.
Awesome. So I guess I should switch your careers then.
Always to Power BI, yeah.
All right, we going, anyone else, sorry? We're good? Perfect. We're going to move on to the next question from Paul Turley. Thank you very much, Paul. I'm seeing more interest in using data flows to centralize query logic, but using PQ in desktop is so much faster and easier. Having features like CDM and auto ML integration is great, but this often introduces cumbersome overhead to a project. What are your thoughts about the best practice approach to building and managing queries for mainstream Power BI solutions?
Chris, Reza?
I'd probably better take this. So the Power Query team, the Power Query Online team, are working very hard to improve the development experience in Power Query Online. We've seen diagram view released the other day. Possibly more relevant for performance is schema view, which really reduces the overhead needed to be able to the queries that need to be run in the background to populate the Power Query Online interface. So there's a lot of work going on to improve the performance of that, and we should see some benefits appearing over the next couple of months. Something else that was announced the other day, which didn't get too much fanfare, is that there is the ability now in some places where you see Power Query to export and import things called Power Query templates. So at the moment, this is available in Excel Insiders build, where you can export a Power Query template, so basically a file containing all of your Power Query queries, and you can now import that in one place, which is Power Platform data flows. So if you did want to develop in one place, for example, develop on the desktop and then publish up to a data flow, for example, Power Query templates will help you do that much more easily than you can do today.
I just add one thing to that, like in my work, I'm like fan of data flow. I do a lot of things with data flows, but I normally develop things in Power BI desktop, then copy that over in data flow. Right now, that is just Control-C, Control-V, and that just moves over everything, even folders, parameters, everything together. But as Chris mentioned, templates would be definitely like the better way to do it. But even if you don't have it now, you can just still copy it over. That would be my way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Cheers.
Awesome. Thank you, Reza. Switching up gears here a little bit, we got another question from Brandon. Will it ever be possible to access all of the admin data, for example, activity log, etc., via a Power BI data source connection versus PowerShell or API calls? It will be nice to be able to easily access and visualize our Power BI admin data with Power BI.
So it will not be able to do it directly to Power BI, but what is coming is the ability for you to stream your activity data to Azure Log Analytics. So this is already published in the Power BI roadmap. If you don't know the roadmap for Power BI, go to powerbi.com/roadmap, where you can see all the roadmaps. So this item is there. So you will be able to stream all your log data to Azure Log Analytics. And from there, you can connect with Power BI Desktop to the Log Analytics and go through all your data.
I think it's called Azure Monitor Integration. If you look for it on the roadmap, that's where you can keep your eye on when it's going to be popping up.
Yes.
It's pretty exciting.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Now, another question from Shabnam. And by the way, fellas out there, we've got a lot of questions. Yes, and I'm trying my best to keep on track. There's a lot of that that keep on shifting. There's high popularity in a couple of them. So I'm going to go here with the top of the list from Shabnam. It reads, we still have many multidimensional Ssis databases. Power BI can connect to them with Live Connect, but with limited functionality. We found a workaround to allow users to create measures, I think, by connecting to an Ssis database. Deploy it to the service, then use that as a new data set, which makes it look like a Power BI data set in the service and allows users to create measures. Do you think a composite model will work with such as a data set? And I think, Reza, you want to take this one?
I think that requires more inside information than what I have.
Okay, I guess
Casper, Chris, Phil.
I'm looking at Chris, but
I think that requires even more inside information than we have. I suspect it would not be supported.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much. That got really a lot of.
Well, I mean, so one thing that I do want to mention is, like, even if you were able to write measures, you will be able to write DAX measures and not MDX. So that will never be the case.
Yeah, on that, didn't we just recently announce a whole nice suite of VMs that are going to be Azure based that you will allow you to lift and shift your MDX on premise, relatively easy into the cloud? I know it doesn't answer this question specifically, but there is often, quite a few questions about what's happening with the MDX side as well. So I think here at PASS we have announced a suite of VMs optimized for MDX cubes, which will hopefully make it much easier for you to turn off the lights in your old on-premise data centers and move those very valuable MDX cubes that Chris has probably virtually put some of his code into, copy and paste from his blogs, etc. But yeah, it shouldn't be too far away, so you'll be able to find out pretty soon enough, and we'll be interested to hear what you find, Shabnam. So
thank you.
Only one way to find out.
Thank you. And I have another, like a follow-up question from David. He says, going back to the first question about AI visuals being available in reports that are in live connection mode, did you say that these features should work for reports that are connected to share Power BI Premium data sets? I wasn't clear on the response provided, he says.
So it will not. So if your data set in the share in Power BI Premium connects to, okay, let's put it this way. The AI visuals will work in any data set that is hosted inside of Power BI. But if your data set is connected to an analysis services model, it won't work.
Okay, and hopefully that answers your question, David. And if not, just let us know. We'll plug it in there in the question pane. This is another question from Anthony. So how much of your divergence between on-prem SSAS versus Power BI Premium do you see in the future?
I am not so sure if there will be much divergence. The only thing really that I see is the similar divergence as between analysis services, Tabular, and Power BI Premium. To Chris's point earlier, a lot of the features that we're adding to Power BI Premium is not because we don't want to add them to the analysis service Tabular model. It's because we use a lot of peripherals that are really sitting outside of the analysis service engine. So things like the AI visuals, things like VNets, lots of things that we are adding to the Power BI Premium are things that are sitting around and would be very interesting to host inside of analysis services engine if we were to ship it there. So that's the majority of the reason. Real modeling features, like for example, we recently shipped calculation groups that also went to Azure Analysis Services. There's a good chance that it will also actually it is already there in the on-premise analysis services too.
Awesome. Thank you, Casper. And we have this question directed to Chris. Here we go, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need any help for lobbying for any Azure AS multidimensional mode?
No, I think we've heard, well, I've heard a lot of feedback from analysis services, multidimensional customers over the last couple of months. And it's a topic that we debate a lot on the product group. As Phil mentioned, we have just launched a new range of pre-configured Azure VMs for analysis services multidimensional. And if you did want to migrate your Azure Analysis Services multidimensional to the cloud, that would be the way we would recommend right now, but who knows what might happen in the future.
Thank you for that. Now we've got another one from Anthony. Can we get an export to PDF of the relationship view and an auto sort of the relationship view?
I would say go to ids.powerbi.com and vote for the requests.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's available right now, and I'm not sure that is planned too. And I can't speak for Power BI desktop development team.
Yeah, I think Tabular Editor has some interesting views where you can list the relationships which you might be able to sort, and I think you can export them to not necessarily PDF but CSV. So if you're just looking to document and
actually, Reza, your app.
Yeah, I'm thinking that we don't have it right now, but that's a good idea. We might do it.
So you can do a plug now too, Reza.
Yeah.
Taking away some homework, hey, Reza?
Yeah.
it'll be done by Monday.
So Reza has an app called Power BI Documenter. It documents a lot of things. Power BI Helper. That does a lot of documentation of your Power BI files. So maybe it helps. Now we give him a feature request too. So let's see how fast he is going to be.
And don't hide there, Leila. Well, you're going to have to help Reza if we want to have it out by Monday, because people are going to be following up with him.
Yeah, Monday is kind of Tuesday in New Zealand time. So yeah.
That's at least Monday for.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next question. Oh my God, there's so many questions here. And audience out there, sorry, I'm just trying to keep up. The questions keep on going up and down. There's a lot of good questions here. So I'm going to try my best again. Anthony asks, so should we expect to see SQL Server 2021 have some AI features?
I don't think anyone can say that. We don't know what the SQL Server next release is going to entail, or even like I have no clue when it's going to ship. So
perfect.
And I guess this is more question from like SQL Server database engine guys, if this is a SQL Server database engine oriented.
Well, I mean, regardless, I don't think the plans for any SQL Server on-premise release have been announced yet, as far as I know.
And while talking about plans, we have another question here from James. Any plans to make it possible for user input to set direct query parameter values at runtime in the Power BI service?
Chris.
Yeah.
So that is possible today for many data sources with dynamic M parameters. This functionality doesn't work with all data sources. It doesn't work with, for example, anything related to SQL Server or SAP or Oracle or Teradata, but it does work for pretty much all the rest of the data sources that support direct query. It doesn't also support that there's no actual way where you can type in a value. You always have to have a table with values in it where you can build a slicer. But this is a feature that I'm very excited about. It's a feature I think a lot of people are very excited about. I think it's fair to say that my colleagues on the rest of the Power BI team have now realized how excited everybody is about this feature. So, you know, I hope we will continue to invest in it in the future.
Yeah, if you do want to type in a value, you probably need to look at the Power App visual, and build a little Power App with a text box that you then can pass back to a data source in a clever way, and then issue some direct query type refresh calls within there. But it's quite a complicated thing. It's not an easy thing to set up, but if you're really determined to get that level of functionality, then probably today the Power App visual hosted in a report could get you to the point where you can type in values and have that influence the other visuals on the page. But it's not trivial. It's quite complex.
So I guess short answer would be there is hope.
You can already do it for some scenarios.
Yeah.
There's always hope.
Go to Chris Webb's blog. He actually wrote a good blog post on this recently.
A good series.
Three blog posts.
See?
Yeah, a series very highly recommended.
There you go, fellas, for out there in the audience. Thank you so much for that. Quick question from Denise. She, by the way, says hi to everyone. I am looking at Q&A in Power BI and comparing to another BI tool. There has been a lot of improvements on Q&A. What more is coming?
More Q&A.
More Q&A.
Yes.
I don't think we can answer much about this question yet.
Okay.
There's not much that is publicly announced, and I'm not the PM of that area, so I don't want to say too much.
Completely understandable. Don't worry. So let's go into the next question. And this is from Jay and is directed to Casper, Chris, and Philip. What kind of bribe would get support for stored procedures by incremental refresh in the next release? Wink, wink.
So I think if you were to come to the Power BI product group and say we were going to spend maybe about $10 million with us on Power BI licenses, that would probably get everybody's attention, and then you'd probably be able to get whatever features implemented you wanted.
I'm actually not even sure how it would work with incremental refresh. Just thinking about it technically now.
But I think you can do it right now, right? Because we have just like two Power Query parameters. This can behind the scene work with a store procedure that gets two parameters so that I think that.
Yeah, I mean you can do incremental refresh in a lot of different ways. So yeah,
no, but
you'd
creates
probably be able
these,
to hack it.
It creates those partitions and all. Yeah, oh yeah, you should be able. Yeah.
Yeah, if you've got a stored procedure that takes a start date and an end date, then yeah, you should be able to do that.
Put it on ids.powerbi.com and get people to vote. That's probably the easiest way. Start a campaign.
Totally.
Well, we are
Okay.
open to bribes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think we have a good question here from Deepankar. It reads, right now, you don't have access source control for Power BI. If SSAS Tabular go away, then Power BI must need to have capabilities to work with source control. Any comments on this?
Yes.
Please.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so if your model is hosted in Power BI Premium, then what you have through XMLA read is the ability to script out the entire model, or you can script out parts of the model. And what that scripting out does, and you can automate the scripting, is provide a long piece of text, which is typically in JSON format, that you can save and version control and do quite a lot with.
I mean, it's the same script as in tabular models, right? So.
Yep, exactly the same format, and you can I believe Tabular editor. You can do some types of version control, and that will work with models hosted in Power BI Premium.
And the ALM toolkit.
ALM toolkit, yeah. BISM normalizer. There are sort of tools and approaches out there that you can look up, and they do work with Power BI Premium. The harder part is models hosted not in Power, and the models hosted in Power BI but not hosted in Premium that don't have that visibility for you to talk to with XMLA read, which is really the crux of what we need to be able to do to get source control and what were we talking about? Version control, etc.
And it's
working.
And it's not just for premium; it's also the new premium per user. That will also work.
And I think go for it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I rephrased that question a little bit. Would it be in near future or something like that we would have this functionality built in, that this Power BI development works behind the scene with Azure DevOps? It checks in, checks out, gives us this ability. We can do that with XMLA, but just built in, easier for everyone to use. Do you have it in the plan? If you can say.
I do it.
Let me just check something, because again, I have to be sure what we've said in public.
While you're checking that, do you want me? Scott just kind of complimented Deepankar, or kind of sort of answer Deepankar. There was a session earlier today on CI/CD with Power BI utilizing Tabular editor. So maybe whenever you have time and the recording is available, you can also go check that one out.
But so I do know, Chris, even though we're maybe not allowed to fully say it, but there are some plans in that direction for sure.
Okay.
But what timeline and what, I don't know exactly.
But it's good to know that there are plans.
So I have it in front of me. I can quote from the blog post from September the 22nd, announcing the availability of deployment pipelines. What's coming up? Automation and Azure DevOps integration.
See.
So go and have a look at the blog post from the 22nd of September announcing deployment pipelines general availability and the what's coming up section at the bottom.
There you have it, fellas. Thank you.
Cover some use cases. Yeah.
Some use cases, yes.
Oh, that's great. Always good to have use cases there. For sure. We have another question. Is the Power BI team planning on updating the Paginated report builder application to a more modern application experience?
So I think long term, what you might find is a lot of the authoring experience might start to become available in the web. At the moment, there are limited things that you can do. Like you can create a PBIX file, for example, and publish it to the web, and you can go in and edit it and do some basic things. But I think at a high level, what you'll find is for both PBIX and Report Builder, more and more functionality will light up in the web. And I think that will be the experience where you'll start to see these things to turn up. That's my more personal take. That's not an official call. So what was the question again about the report builder, the feature?
I think this is about like the current report builder is
Yep.
not as, let's say, modern
Yep.
as the Power BI desktop itself. Would that get
Yep.
modern or not?
Yeah, so just things like the query builder can be sometimes a little sluggish depending on the complexity of the model you're connecting to, etc. And there's a lot that's going on under the covers there. Now, we could either invest quite heavily in almost rewriting that from scratch, or we could possibly put our focus into maybe doing a cloud version of that. And I think what you find there is you might start to see a bit of a refresh and a more modern take on how you can perform those key functions in Report Builder. Yeah, so I think watch the space, but I think what you'll probably find is maybe the Report Builder core won't necessarily change its look and feel. You might find that it's much easier to do a lot of the same functionalities in a nicer, more modern way once these things we have the ability to write the web version of these. That's my take. I'm not the feature PM of that, but I have had some chats with him recently, so we'll just.
We greatly take those insights, Phil. Thank you.
No problem.
A question from Shabnam. As a Power BI service admin, is there a way to get a list of columns used in a published dataset? By APIs or PowerShell? I know how to get the list of workspaces datasets and reports, but not any detail level metadata from a dataset.
Another good idea for Power BI help.
So it's not available to.
Yes.
Go ahead,
not in a
Rez.
supported way.
Awesome. Thank you.
But I think, yeah, I mean, there's some integration in the works too with like things like Azure Data Catalog and things like this, where things will be more transparent of what's actually the details of what's going on inside of your Power BI. So you can see the lineage, you can see what is being used and where. So I would assume, I don't expect all of these details to be available inside of Power BI. I think you will see that us collaborating with the Azure Data Catalog team and things like this, where you will have more insights into deeper level insights on these lineage and so forth.
Thank you, Casper and Shabnam. We hope that helps you pull those. Now we have another question from David. The ability to connect to Power BI datasets from Excel doesn't work for Power BI datasets that point to SSAS or Azure AS databases. It only seems to work for Power BI datasets that are in import mode. Are there plans to enable users to be able to view and connect to Power BI datasets that connect to analysis service databases?
Chris?
Well, given that you can already connect Excel directly to analysis services, why would you want to go through a Power BI dataset to do that?
I mean, I can imagine from a usability standpoint.
Possibly.
But
possibly.
I think the answer is going to be no. Not anytime soon.
Thank you. Wow, there's a lot of questions here. And while I get those sorted out here, I just wanted to remind everyone about the session evaluations. Aside from helping your presenters and pass, improve, and how we deliver this kind of sessions, you also will get the opportunity to get be in the win for a raffle prize in there. So please don't forget to fill out all those session evaluations at the end, and that will be very much appreciated. Now, let's go with another question from Paul. Given what we know about the complexities of composite models and how easy it is for uneducated users to do bad things, do you anticipate an increased occurrence of performance issues, troubleshooting, or support incidents?
Hang on, Phil, Chris, Reza, you want to take it?
I think this is more like a governance question, that if we have the ability to build models on top of the models, this would create some challenges like that. Am I right in understanding the question, guys, do you think?
Well, another way of interpreting it would be to say, it's worth saying that, nothing is going to perform better than having all of your data in the same data set. So that may well turn out to be one piece of performance advice that you end up giving in the future more often.
And I'd say adding Phil's entry to that Phil has a really fantastic series on using aggregations. Aggregations by itself is good, but when you use it in composite model, it's like super. So I would suggest using that series, spreading everywhere. This is a good reference to read.
Yeah.
And again, cheers to Paul. And everyone bring their bottle of water up. Just
Cheers, Reza.
I've
And
got
cheers
tea.
to everyone
I've
out
got-
there.
No bottle of water.
Okay, another question from Denise. As a global company, we have the challenge of administrating at several levels, and we have only a handful of administrators for security and compliance reasons. We're interested in the view of only type roles at different levels of administration in Power BI or Office 365. Example, Power BI tenant administrator would be ideal to have view only, as well as those that can truly make changes. Any chance that that will happen in the future?
I would like that to happen, but I don't have any inside information. I mean, we do have some levels of administration right now, like the report owner is kind of admin on his report. The workspace admin is like a different level of admin. Power BI tenant admin is another, but more granular.
I have seen it somewhere, but I don't want to. It's not on the concrete plan that I've seen, so it might come, but
it's good not
no
to promise.
Promises.
Yes.
Yeah, no promises.
Well, we will continue to invest in Power BI administration features.
Denise knows where to find me, so yeah.
It is something we talk about a lot on the CAT team.
Yeah, we've heard that particular request before.
Well, it's good to know that it's not Denise only there facing that challenge there. Got a question from Sunil, and sorry for butchering names out there. Using Power BI report server, will we get features like print all pages, export to PDF, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. anytime soon?
I think the answer is going to be no. Again, most of these features have reliance on components outside of the direct report server, similar to what we talked about before. So I don't think it's going to show up anytime soon.
Yeah, I think your best bet there is Report Builder and Paginated reports for Power BI would be, and now that we have premium per user, it's a lot more accessible, especially to smaller and medium-sized organizations. So I think that will be the place you need to look at if you want that functionality. So Report Builder and Paginated reports for Power BI. Whether they does all of those things that you asked, I know it certainly does some of them, but that will be the place where it can where you can achieve that.
Yeah, I'd say the same. Power BI mainly is good for not printing, for having interaction. If you want printed, then paginated reports.
It's surprisingly a lot of work goes in behind the scenes to actually render something so that it's ready to print. So it's not an easy task, and it can put a lot of load on your system. So if everyone in your org decides to do the print at the same time, we need to be able to manage that somehow and not bring down the servers. So
awesome. Thank you, Casper, Phil, and Reza for that. A question from Kiran. Is there a plan to retire multidimensional SSAS in the near future with the new features available in Tabular 2019? Is the obvious path now Tabular SSAS Power BI for most of the complex calculation requirement over a large data set?
Yes.
Analysis services multidimensional is not going to be deprecated anytime soon. However, as we go into the future, there will be, I would say today, the majority, the vast majority of all your BI requirements can be handled with Power BI Premium and/or Azure Analysis Services, the tabular model. And we will add more features for doing more complex calculations to the tabular model as well. Things like calculation groups were a big step forward in this area. but multidimensional is not going to be deprecated anytime
No,
soon.
and I think maybe you can see it by us releasing those new templates too. Like we keep things going. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Another question from David. What updates is the Power BI team planning for enhancing the usage metrics reporting experience for the Power BI service? Right now, the usage reporting from the admin portal is outdated and lacking. Anything planned there?
So I'm not quite sure if the actual UI will be changed. I think the big bet is going to be because there's some downsides to the UI that we have there too. It's only keeps 7 days of data and things like this. So the really big bet is for us to push that data into that log analytics that I was talking about before. And then you can create your own reports on top of that easily. We'll also supply templates and things like this so that you can easily run them out of the box. So you have more than 7 days, you can do 30 days, 60 days. But because of GDPR and all these rules, we only keep them for 7 days, but you can keep them however long you want because you're the one who will be managing this data.
Perfect. Thank you, Casper. Yeah. Just a quick reminder, we got a couple minutes here left for the panel. There's been a lot of questions, really good questions as well. And I've heard a lot of good answers there as well. So thank you again, everyone. We're going to take a couple more questions here, and then we're going to wrap it up. We'll hand it over to our panelists here to give final remarks, and that will be it. So question from Ed, following on tabular source control, what about source control for the visuals themselves?
Good question. Not anytime soon, I would think. I think.
You can kind of do it today by just saving your PBIX files in a OneDrive where you automatically get version controls of the PBIX. It's pretty rough. It's pretty brutal, you know, and particularly if your PBIX file is large. But if you go and, you know, save your PBIX files somewhere like on a OneDrive or similar, then every time you go file save as, you've got a new version. And if you screw up your report and you want to go back, then, you know, you have options there. But, you know, as Casper said, I haven't heard anything coming soon that's actually going to be built into the UI of desktop.
And I think, I mean, maybe we can talk about the reason too. The reason why this is not coming anytime soon is because if we need to do that, then we need to lock down the file format internally of the visuals canvas of the Power BI report server. That would not allow us to quickly iterate and add changes to what we have in Power BI today. For the Atlas service, we already did this work a long time ago, so kind of already, yeah, we get this. But for the Power BI report part, there's a lot of work that needs to be doing and would prohibit us from moving fast with the Power BI reporting canvas.
And in Power BI Helper, we have a page that you can compare actually to different Power BI files, and it actually compares the visual layout of those. I know it is not supported feature, but it does something. It might help you.
Thank you, Reza. I got a question for Leila here. For someone getting started with R, what is the best resource? What would you recommend?
Oh, there are many good ones. So if, for example, I'm also a self-learner, so I start with some of the famous ones like Data Camp and also our bloggers. They are really good articles over there. And also recently also Microsoft provides some really good one on ADX. So that's a really good starter. But the rest is actually, it needs to be based on the project. Definitely we are not going to learn all of the code. So you should see which direction they want to go to the using it as a statistical analysis or machine learning. So then they are based on actually they can that. But in ADX, Microsoft website, we have really good one. And also the other community member in actually MVP, also they provide lots of really interesting blog or books. So that's also can be really helpful.
Thank you, Leila. Thanks a lot. And I guess they can get in touch with you if they have, you know, if they wanted to follow up and for you to some sort of like mentor and to see where they can start, right?
Yes, yeah. Definitely.
Awesome. Thank you, Leila. Question from Steven. Is it great to see premium capacity generation 2 go into public preview? Many great improvements. In the future, do you think we will some kind of automatic load balancing across the capacities if you have a multiple premium capacities. Sorry for that. Do you want me to read that question again?
No, I think I get it. Yeah.
I would say if you are rich enough to have multi premium capacity Gen 2 available, just contact Power BI team. They built that feature for you.
I think this more has to do with like query skill out. Like when a particular database is under heavy load, we want to make sure that it is automatically pushed to multiple different services, like we have with Azure Analysis Services. Azure Analysis Service has this capability. It is also planned as part of the ability for us to get all the features from Azure Analysis Service over to Power BI 2. So this is one of the features that is actually planned. I don't know what the date will be, but it won't be too far off. And then you will be able to say, okay, well, this model I wanted to use like more capacity and to automatically scale out.
Thank you, Casper. I'm going to take a couple more questions and then we're going to wrap it up here. I'm not sure if this one has been answered at one point in the beginning, but we have this question. Will any of the AI features be possible on-prem?
Yeah, I think we did answer it. The answer was no.
Perfect. Yes, I thought so.
I think you can do if you don't want like the pre-built features. Like Leila has some articles about that. But if you want the custom, I mean, the built-in features, probably not.
Okay, 2 more questions and we're going to wrap it up. Question from Scott. Will adding translations be supported directly within Power BI, or will third-party tools like Tabular Editor be the standard for creating translations?
Phil, you want to take this? I know you're passionate about it.
Yeah. So I can't speak officially, but today I believe you can use Tabular Editor to add translations, and there's no way to do it through the UI. And the trouble we have is that we want to make Power BI Desktop inviting and accessible to new users. And the more we overload with advanced features, the more complicated it is and uninviting. So we do work very closely with third-party tools, as everyone knows, like Tabular Editor and DAX Studio. So I think in the medium term for now, if you do need to add translations to your model, then look to use Tabular Editor. It's definitely something we think about, and I would say this time next year we might be giving a slightly different answer or a slightly different way. Yeah, for now,
but also make sure you check what is actually supported when you use external tools, because I'm not sure translation is officially supported.
I think it depends where your model's hosted. So if you publish your model to Power BI Premium, then I think you can connect via Tabular Editor and add translations there using XMLA read write, where the engine can cope with those. But I think when you connect to Power BI Desktop directly from Tabular Editor, then certain things you can do, certain things you can't do. I think there's a switch where you can try unsupported features. Some of them may or may not work, but it's totally at your own risk. As you know, we update Power BI Desktop month to month. So something that works this month that's officially unsupported might not necessarily work next month because we're rejigging things underneath the covers. But if you do publish your model to Power BI Premium, XMLA read write, then yes, you can use tools like Tabular Editor and probably even Visual Studio SSDT to add that functionality. Or even if you want to roll your sleeves up, Tom-based scripting engines, or just SSMS, and hack together some JSON and fire that JSON at the model, and that will work too. But that's getting really fun. But you have options. But probably in the short term, I wouldn't expect to see anything pop up in Power BI Desktop as a really simple right-click, add translation, in the next few set of releases. But ask for it. Vote for it on ideas.com. Vote for it up. If lots of people vote for it, then it's going to accelerate that. So.
Thank you, Phil. And this is going to be the last question. And thank you again for everyone, all your questions. I know that we could probably sit here and talk for another hour and take all your questions, but unfortunately we have to wrap it up. So this is the last question, and then I'm going to flip it over to our panelists. As a Power BI admin, what is the easiest way to find reports that being shared from users' MySpace?
My workspace. I think the only way you can see that is, is from the auditing logs. All you do is in Office 365 auditing logs. That's the only place where you can see it. So you have to have it turned on, otherwise you won't be able to see it. There is something in the plans, though, that I can say. I have no timelines. There is something in the plans that allows you to show that inside of Power BI too.
Perfect. I was hoping, I think that was like going to be a quick answer there. So that's why I took the last one. And again, apologies if we can't get to all your questions. Now, any final remarks now? Chris, Casper, Leila, Reza, thank you so much. And we're going to start with Leila. Any final remarks, Leila?
Really excited about the new AI features like anomaly detection, narrative. And also I recommend for the custom visual, that's we have a kind of the custom visual connect creation charticulator. So that's a really good one. It's enhanced recently a lot. So I totally recommend people go and check it out. It's easy to work. So that's the advice I can say.
Thank you for that, Leila. Reza?
I would say stay in touch with the community. Follow Twitter #PowerBI or LinkedIn #PowerBI, Facebook #PowerBI, everywhere #PowerBI. You'll hear all the news about Power BI, all the blog posts coming from experts around. That is the way that I would engage with the most up-to-date news, and it was great to be here with you all.
Thank you, Reza. Phil?
If you want to get the best out of Power BI, one really good resource I've mentioned just before is to go to do an internet search for Power BI guidance. There's a whole series of articles on a wide variety of topics with best practice. They're short, they're very easy to digest, and if you read those and follow those, then you'll be in a much better space, and your models will run faster and your end users will be happier.
Maybe you can also plug your new DAX training.
Oh, yes. On the Microsoft Learning Path, if you go to Microsoft Learning Path, there's a 7-module or 8-module free online that you can walk through to learn DAX or improve your DAX skills. It's pretty comprehensive. It's proving to be very popular. So I would definitely recommend, do an internet search for just Learning Path, Microsoft Learning Path, and Learn DAX. And there's a very good, online, free, self-paced session that's interactive with exercises that you can follow. So thanks for that, Casper. Definitely well worth having a look at.
Thank you, Phil. And Casper, I'll flip it over to you. Any final remarks?
Yeah, no, I think it was great being here. As I said before, keep an eye out on powerbi.com/roadmap, where we always publish our latest roadmap items and things like this. And then also keep an eye on the blog posts that Chris was mentioning before, Power BI blogs, all the latest news, especially now around these events. Premium per user, Premium Gen 2. They're all very exciting new features that are there.
Thank you. Thanks for that. And Chris, last but not least, I know you've been speaking today a lot. So final remarks, Chris.
So I think probably the last thing I would say is we can tell everybody is very excited about composite models on live connections. We're very excited about composite models on live connections. I think it's going to be the most exciting feature that we've released for a long time. It's going to solve a lot of problems for a lot of people, but don't get too excited about them. They're not magic. There is going to be a performance overhead to using them compared to having all of your data in one data set. So don't go mad with them when they come. And, as I think some of the questions have alluded to, there's going to be opportunity to abuse them and misuse them. So this is going to be a feature that needs to be governed and managed appropriately.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Chris. And once again, I want to thank all our panelists here today for, taking the time to answer our audience's questions. We really appreciate it. And thank you so much, everyone out there, for all your questions. There were really interesting ones and definitely got, this conversation going. Shout out to Denise, Heidi, Paul, Anthony, everyone that submitted their questions. Thank you so much for all that. I hope you continue to enjoy the last day of this first ever PAS Virtual Summit. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.